Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Upper Tribe. I'm moving some stuff around here, getting set for tonight. Great to have you here. If you are just jumping in, go ahead and put down where you're from. Over here. I'm not really sure where I'm looking, but go ahead and put down what city you're listening from or you're tuning in from. Tonight, we're going to be talking about relationships. I did a post in my Facebook page, and I asked this question about what's the number one obstacle to a happy marriage, and it sparked a ton of conversation. There's about 189 comments that are all like pilfered down below and growing. So I thought I'd take a moment to kind of speak to that, because of all the answers, none of them were the answer I would give. They all had like kind of the fruits of what I think is some of the reason why a lot of people struggle to have a happy marriage, but nobody actually dialed into the very thing that I believe is a critical component to a happy marriage. So I wanted to take some time to share with you in just a real brief training tonight about something that I think is truly going to help you. And so the ultimate element to this, if we were just going to start, and I'm just going to check real quick to make sure I'm not talking to nobody here. Oh yes, we are live. Fantastic. So great to be on here for reals. Okay, so this is what I want to share with you. There is an element of relationships that people miss out on a massive opportunity, and that is this. If I'm going to start right from the get-go, it starts with this is the number one reason why people are struggling to not have happy relationships. Some people have said, oh, it's selfishness. Some people say, oh, it's, they don't bring in the expectations. They don't share their expectations. They don't communicate. All of those things are fruits of something very critical, and it's this: identity. Most people do not have a strong sense of self. And if you're going to have a great relationship, the very best thing that you could possibly have is two individuals who have ridiculously healthy self-worths. And that's something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, is they don't realize that having a ridiculously healthy self-worth actually plays into everything. And now think about it. When you get in a conversation, if you are not completely comfortable in your own skin, if you're not confident in who you are, you're always going to be approaching conversations from a place of lack. You're coming from a place of some kind of fragility, some kind of weakness. And therefore, you are going to try and compensate for that to be right. You're going to argue that you're right. You're going to come from a perspective that if they point something in you, what you're going to do is you're going to turn around and point something out about them. These are all the indicators that you are struggling from a sense of self that is either damaged or hasn't been fully developed or well developed. And so this is a really, really important piece, is understanding that to have a ridiculous, healthy self-worth, you've got to do some work. For me, when I did my first marriage, I came in, I was running a business and things weren't going great. I was feeling the pressure. Meanwhile, both of my brothers had gone and gotten married, and now I'm like the only one still on my own. And so I felt needy. I was coming from this place of weakness. I was coming from this place of less than. And so I drove myself into a relationship to try and meet some kind of hole in myself, trying to meet some kind of need about myself, which is the worst thing you can do. So let me share with you some other indicators that show you kind of the fruits of this root, because my example is a very blatant example. And other people, it's far more subtle. They get into a relationship, it seems great, it goes well for a while, and I would tell you that anybody can fake anything for a year. The mask starts to slip off, and now we get to know who we really are. So if one person is in a place of ridiculous, healthy self-worth, and the other one is not, that can create problems. And so you get in this place where codependency can sometimes form, where one person is doing all the work to meet the other person's needs. Now let me get into some psychology here. When you come into a relationship with some kind of a need quotient, one of the easiest things you can do is place judgment on that other person. You'll judge the things they do. You'll judge why they do it. This is an interesting thing. All of us do things for different reasons. We don't realize it. And what we do is we project onto other people the same rationale that we would have. So if somebody does something, we immediately assume they're doing it for the same reason I would do something. And it's altogether not true. There's a lot of judgment we place on the way it makes us feel. If someone says something that, challenges a belief or challenges the way we do things, if we're coming from a place of weakness, the first thing we'll do is lash out at them. And we will start an argument over something that might start off really petty, and then it'll blow up because you've got layers and layers and layers of stuff you've allowed to build up over time. So judgment becomes one of these enemies, or as my wife and I like to call it, it's one of the strains of a virus. This virus is this lack of identity or ridiculous, healthy self-worth. The second piece that I want to share with you is offense. When you are in this place where you are struggling with whether someone says something or does something in a way different than you will oftentimes go to a place of being offended, easily offended. And it's terrible because you don't mean to be offended. You don't mean to come from a place of unhealthiness. You don't mean to come from this place of not being grace-filled, or not coming from a place of thoughtfulness or kindness. So you jump into it from an area of where you are exposing your lack, exposing this weakness. And so here you are coming to the relationship with a lack of self-worth, and you become hypersensitive to the things of the relationship. Super, super bad. And sometimes it becomes even toxic. Let me go to the third piece before I start making sense of all this. So now, these three strains. The first one is judgment. The second one is offense. And the third one is expectation. Oftentimes, we will have expectations of what a relationship is supposed to look like, what it's supposed to feel like. And it can oftentimes be programmed by the way our parents were, or the way our grandparents were, or the way that we've believed culture to be. And so we have this expectation, a fantasy we've built in our head of what it's supposed to look or feel like. And then we match up our partner against that expectation. But here's the thing. We rarely tell them what it is that we're expecting. Can you understand where that might cause a problem? I've got all these beliefs in my head of the ways you're supposed to talk to me, the ways that you're supposed to treat me, the way that you're supposed to either do the cooking or do the cleaning or be the income generator, or there's something I have in my head that is a story that I'm now measuring you to. I have a false expectation. And it's never fair for you to have an expectation of someone and never share it with them. So here we are in these three components, or these viruses that are killing relationships. My wife and I call it the ugly Joe: judgment, offense, and expectation. All of those are fruits of not having a healthy self-worth. Or as I like to say, your identity. Until you get to a place where you're not easily offended, where you're not going to go to judgment, you're going to give that person the benefit of the doubt. They're your partner after all. You share a bed, you share a lot of things, maybe even a name. I don't know, in this day and age, not so much. But all of these different things are things you share, and now all of a sudden you treat them like an enemy, or you keep score of where each other are at in the arguments, and they keep coming up over and over and over again, and we start to build in these little snide cuts, sarcasm, and things of that nature that become altogether toxic in the relationship. And then the last is false expectation. So now here we are with these three components. The opposite of this is investing in yourself and developing a healthy self-worth and believing about yourself the best of things. Because as you are healthy, your brain seeks equilibrium. Psychology says your brain will translate whatever it's experiencing on the inside, it's going to want to experience on the outside. And so therefore, oftentimes we will attract in our chaos, when the inside is in chaos, we will attract our favorite pain. Like the thing that we need to validate. It's deeply psychological. We'll attract a partner that will treat us in the way that we believe about ourselves. And you'll say, that's not true. I don't want to be treated like that. But if you really break it down, if you have a lack of self-worth, if you question something about yourself, something that happened in your past where you're carrying shame or guilt or pain of any sort, and you haven't dealt with that past trauma, what you're doing is you are trying to get into a codependent relationship where someone can either magnify that pain or they'll try and soothe that pain. Either way, you're putting all the dependence on someone else to make you feel happy. And it ain't never going to happen. Never, never, never. At some point in time, that other partner is going to exhaust. They're going to finally have enough. They're finally going to feel like they've been kicked around and abused to a certain extent, and now they become damaged and bitter and angry. So that can't work. And furthermore, if you don't have any self-awareness, you don't realize that you're part of the problem. Like, it's part of the thing you're creating because you're being dependent on that person. You are a emotional vampire trying to extract stuff from them to make you feel happy. This is the stuff that conflicts relationships. Not having a healthy self-worth. Now, when you are comfortable in your own skin and your partner challenges you on something, you don't take it personally. You give them the benefit of the doubt, and you can ask more questions and say, hey, when you said that, it kind of made me feel like X. Is that what you were trying to imply? Is that what you were trying to communicate? And now your partner has a chance to respond, so there can be this healthy understanding. That often doesn't happen when people are feeling threatened or feeling at edge because they don't have a healthy self-worth. So it's really important that you develop this identity and this sense of self to a healthy facet. And the truth is, we're always growing, every one of us. We're always going up, into these areas of growth. And I was just sharing with somebody this week that, in the same way I gave the illustration earlier, that we will jump into relationships, and if one of the people in the relationship starts getting healthier and they go on this growth trajectory and they're diving into personal development and really making progress, if the other partner doesn't choose to do the same, oftentimes they can feel left out. They can resent you for growing, and then they can point fingers at you. It's like, oh, you just think you're better than me. Oh, look at you just getting back in shape, and oh, look at you making more money than me. Oh, aren't you awesome? Then they'll make you feel guilty and shameful for the growth that you're making. So if that other partner doesn't choose on their own, and you can't force them, you can't make them, you can't encourage them, because this is a choice they have to make, and for you to have a healthy boundary because you're comfortable in your own skin, you know that it's not your responsibility to make them happy. It's not your responsibility to change them. That should be nobody's responsibility. So until they make that choice for themselves, there's very little you can do. So if yourself is healthy and you're comfortable to stay in that situation and give them the grace and the time to, develop on their own time, now the relationship can be at peace. And you don't have to let that stuff affect you while they're in process. And furthermore, you can create almost like a greenhouse around them, allowing this peace and sanity around them, which at first will seem uncomfortable. Because if they love chaos, at least in chaos they know what to expect. Now you show them peace and they're not exactly sure of the environment. It might take a little time for them to get used to that peace. But once they do, and they can feel safe, suddenly they can give themselves permission to change. So, getting really deep tonight, aren't I? I hope this has been helpful for you. But I want you to know that when we don't have the confidence or the safety to say what we want, trouble ensues. And I want to just share that a little bit more, go a little bit deeper real quick. So like I said, your sense of self has to be intact. And when it is, then you can actually say some of the things you're thinking, some of the things that you want in the relationship. And I don't mean from a place of demanding or a place of, again, other expectations, but rather actually sharing what those expectations are. You could actually say, hey, when my parents, when I was a kid, when they had conversations, like they never yelled at each other, never raised their voice. And in our relationship, oftentimes you can really elevate the tone of your voice, and that makes me feel like the house is kind of like uncomfortable and not in order and staticky, and that makes me feel threatened. Like, why do you feel a need to yell like that? Suddenly, we have a conversation. So if you're in another place where someone is challenging, something that's going on, and you have the confidence to say what you want, you can say, the words you just chose to share sounded really threatening, and I know you well enough to know that that's not exactly what you meant, but that's how it made me feel. Is there another way that you could say what you said in a way that would deliver the impact that you want to make without being cutting in your words and your choice of words? Your spouse is like, what? Until they learn, like, oh, yeah, you're right. Maybe that was a little harsh. Or you could be in a conversation where in the middle of the conversation, if you're in a place of self-worth and you start to say something and self-awareness kicks in and the words are coming out of your mouth, you're like, oh, the thing I was saying, like, I'm actually talking out of a sense of fear. And I'm like projecting that on you. Like, that's totally not cool. I'm so sorry. Like, that's not what I'm... Here's what I have to say. Like, I'm super nervous about this decision. And if I'm honest, I'm scared. And I need some time to kind of process this, or I need some assurance from you to know that we're making the right choice, or that you're feeling the same way too. Like, suddenly the conversations change, the dynamics of the conversations change when people are healthy and safe enough to be able to say what they really want. Hey, honey, when I grew up, I was under the impression that when we got married, that partners, they have sex 5 to 6 times a week, and we're not doing that. Really? 5 to 6 times? Well, first of all, that's exhausting. I don't know who that is. That's exhausting. But hey, if that's your expectation, let's talk about that. That's not, like, I don't know if I have that kind of stamina. Like, maybe if you're young, just getting married, awesome. Later on, like, I'm busy, I got stuff to do, like, it's awesome. Suddenly we have a conversation and we can work out, well, I'm actually more comfortable, for a couple times, and I'm a morning person, I'm an evening person, I'm in the middle of the night, I like sleepy sex. Like, we can actually have really honest conversations. Hey, that thing that you do when you do, like, this makes me so uncomfortable. Oh, when you touch me like this, that just, it gives me tingles. I love it when you do that. Now we have a safe conversation, because the two are in a place where they can be healthy and say the things that they really want. And now true intimacy can be developed because people are exchanging from a place of wholeness. Down the list of the comments that I saw, somebody said, and a couple of people actually identified this, as they said, relationships many times people say are 50-50, and it's not. It's 100-100. Both of the parts of the couple must bring everything of themselves to the relationship. Like, that's true. There's some other things that people said that, again, I think really kind of follow, it's on this side, all these, elements, just kind of in a different fashion. Selfishness. Selfishness is coming from a place of fear or anger. Selfishness is actually an expression of a different emotion. Selfishness comes from a place of of ownership and lack. And when I say ownership, I don't mean like you're actually, rightfully yours. It means that you're trying to demand everything of yourself, and which means you're coming from this place of lack. You think there's not enough, and so therefore you have to hold on to everything around you. You want control, and you want voice, and you want an expected outcome. Sound familiar? It means you don't have a healthy sense of self. If you're in a place of selfishness, it means that you don't have a healthy self. What you've done is you've gone to this place where something has happened and you've told yourself a story around it. Either somebody did something to you, you did something to someone else, or you did something to yourself. And now you're carrying some kind of a shame or pain or some kind of a trauma as a result. And what you're doing is you're allowing that to dictate the way you interact with other human beings. And as such, you're missing out on intimacy on deep levels because you're coming from such a place of lack. Less than. This place where you feel diminished. The world owes you something. People are trying to take something you think is yours. You bring that into a relationship, we've got fireworks. We've got pain. That's dangerous stuff. So I hope all of this stuff has helped you, because the opposite of this is super powerful. Because when two people come to a place where they are healthy and whole, they're coming a 100 and 100. They're coming to give and not to take. Now all of a sudden it's kind of like the competition is who can serve each other more. Like, no, I got dinner tonight. It's on me. I'm making dinner tonight. Oh, no. I'll vacuum. Hey, I'm doing a batch of laundry. Can I grab these for it? Can I grab the sheets? Can you mind if I strip the sheet? Like, now the relationship is about giving. The relationship is about serving. The relationship is coming from a place of abundance. It's coming from a place of generosity. Because when you are full in yourself, and you have this place of self-confidence, you have this place of self-worth, you have this place of identity, you have nothing to gain, nothing to prove, nothing to lose. And that's a powerful place to be. And that's what I do with my coaching. I work with men. It's a great segue. I work with men, high-performing men, who want to make a difference, who want to find their purpose. They want to be the purposepreneurs of their life. That's what I help them do. I help them get past any kind of mental blocks. I help them create a plan to find clarity, and I help them to take action to hold them accountable, and then I become their cheerleader and their guide to be successful, because here's what I know. Every man has greatness inside of him. That includes you. And it's my job, I feel, is to call that greatness out of you and empower you to be all that you are made to be. To help you to be the man you need to be in order to achieve the thing you see in your heart to achieve. And if that's you, if you want to talk some more about that, feel free to reach out to me. We can set up a call. It's my pleasure to spend some time with you, to dig in deep in what you're doing and where you're at, and to be a part of your life. Outside of that, let's remember this. You want to be in this place of being ridiculously healthy in your self-worth. Having an identity. Hey, Brian, great to see you there. Having ridiculous self-worth means that you don't have to operate in the three elements we call the viruses that destroy relationships. Judgment, offense, and false expectation. This is Ugly Joe. We don't want Ugly Joe anywhere close to our relationships. Come from a place of generosity. Find your true identity and pursue a healthy sense of self. Not only will it help you operate from a place of peace and abundance and confidence, but it will bring light and life to your relationships. Intimacy, chemistry, like collaboration, it's awesome. It took me years to learn this stuff. I don't want you to have to go through all of that. You can fast track it by sowing into your life. I hope this has helped. If you need any help, assistance, you want me to answer any questions, feel free to put some comments down below or shoot a direct message. You guys have a great night. Yes, I love me some intimacy too, Brian. Love you, man. See you guys. Have a great night. And thanks so much for taking the time to invest in yourself and learn some information that will transform your life. Cheers.